I'm truly in disbelief at why so many Canadian citizens want the Liberal Party of Canada, what is more and more becoming the Communist Party of Canada, is enacting more and more legislation, more and more rules. We're now seeing the most extreme anti free speech bills we have ever seen in Canadian history between Bill C8 and Bill C9. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of people who weren't even born in Canada given immigration. We're seeing record 3% of the population entering the country on a record basis, despite the fact that over 70% of Canadians don't want it. Why are we cheerleading on this communist jihadi alliance that is going to end, when you look at history, in an incredibly ugly manner? You just watch the next few years. I can guarantee you 100% certainty, when you look at Carney speak, these central digital IDs, digital banking currency, they're all on their way to Canada to give the government more and more control over us, the Canadian citizens. Good governance, it has frequently been said, is keeping the citizens safe and staying out of their life. That's the exact opposite of what we're seeing in Canada. The provincial government continues to make our life more and more difficult. They know that bringing hundreds of thousands of people into the country every year, actually about 1.4 million people a year over the past 5 years, is going to be disastrous for the economy, disastrous for our culture. 26.4% of all Canadians are now first generation. The native born population is as steadfastly against these rates of immigration as I've ever seen. Yet the Liberals continue to pass more and more laws that give them more and more authority over what we're allowed to say, what we're allowed to think. Mark Carney is blatantly, obviously, working on behalf of the WF, Davos, Brookfield Asset Management, these global elite institutions, these bureaucracies that want to see these green initiatives implemented, ESG, DEI, all these initiatives that across Europe and the United States we have seen, they are so damaging to Western countries, both economically and socially, culturally. Yet we are allowing the Liberal Party of Canada to implement law after law after law that we know is going to wind up with Canada ultimately looking like Venezuela or one of these other third world shitholes. We're already getting closer and closer there every day. When you walk around Canada, the transformation we've seen in this country over the past decade alone is extreme. And if the Canadian citizenry does not stand up incredibly quickly, put their foot down and say enough is enough, we are going to wind up as a third world country. We are already intentionally sabotaging our relationship with the United States, talking about how they don't have the rule of law. There's almost certain to be some sort of a global conflict upcoming, and to be ruining our relationship with the States at the same time as we've only spent 1.3% of our total GDP on national defense over the past 11 years since Trudeau was elected is sheer traitorous. Mark Carney is clearly working on his own financial interest. Brookfield Asset Management is up 45% since he was elected prime minister. His over 600 stocks are up an average of 42%, 90% of which are based in the US. Meanwhile, Canada's economy is an absolute disaster. 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. We're officially in a recession, $63 billion fleeing the country. These 10 so-called major infrastructure projects that he recently announced, a total joke. And well, now, thank God we don't see it anymore because it's freezing cold outside. They don't go outside anymore. But for the past 2.5 years, we've seen hate rallies cheered on our streets. And now they want to enact hate speech laws after literally they have provided police protection to people chanting about intifada, which means violent global revolution, in our lifetime. The police have given these people under the Liberal Party of Canada 5 years of cover, 2.5 years of cover, and now they want to implement these hate speech laws. And if you notice on CBC, CTV, they're starting to talk about the rise of white nationalism. Give me a break. Give me a total break. These people are like Mao. These people are like Stalin. They rewrite the history of World War II, but the communists by far killed the most people, the USSR, and that's exactly what we're falling into in Canada. We're identity politics. You're either an oppressed or an oppressor. If you are an oppressor, you deserve to be treated ruthlessly, which is what we've seen in Canada over the past decade. And if you are an oppressed group, you are just preternaturally virtuous. Mark Carney wants to have total control. It's laughable when he talks about the fact that the United States has the rule of law, when Justin Trudeau, he wrote immediately after the Freedom Convoy, where invoking the Emergencies Act was found to be illegal by Justin Trudeau. Carney wrote an article about how those Canadians, the patriotic Canadians who traveled to Ottawa to protest the vaccine mandates, were seditionists, he said. Now, what's the research on the vaccine saying now, Mark Carney? Saying they were seditionists, saying that they were traitors. If you don't agree with Mark Carney politically, he thinks that you should not have the ability to talk. If you think that he's involved in a green climate scam, which he most certainly is, you're not allowed to talk. If you point out that immigration is wrecking this country, you're not allowed to talk. If you point out the communist radical jihadi alliance that we're seeing in Canada that is sure to end in disaster, you're not allowed to talk. There are currently Khalistani Indian extremists on our streets outside of MPs' houses. We have imported problem after problem after problem into our country. It's so ridiculous. We were perfectly set up in 2015, 32 million people, second largest body of land in the entire world, and that's been totally blown down the drain. We are importing all of the world's problems into Canada, ridiculously so that they can virtue signal and talk about how they believe in multiculturalism, which really just means no culture. I can guarantee you if a policy was enacted where equal percentage of the people entering Canada had to live in Mark Carney's neighborhood, I can guarantee you these policies would never be enacted, but these elitists could give two damns about how average neighborhoods look like. They don't care about the crack smoking. They don't care about the deterioration of our cities when it should be the primary responsibility of the government to look after Canadian cities. They have undoubtedly deteriorated massively over the past 10 years. But Mark Carney and senior officials in the governments of Canada could give two damns. It's truly pathetic. These are communists through and through. These are extremists. They try to put on this virtuous, friendly smile, but Carney can't really hide that he's a snake for very long. The dead-eyed guy, you can tell he has absolutely no passion for Canadians. He has passion for his own pocketbook. He refuses to answer his questions straight up. The guy is working for the WF Davos Brookfield Asset Management. He's trying to turn the large majority of Canadians into cattle. For him, the WF Davos Brookfield Asset Management, Klaus Schwab, to let us know how much meat we're allowed to eat, how far we're allowed to drive. They want carbon emissions. These are far left extremist zealots that led to horrific death. These types of ideology did during the Second World War, but we're forgetting these lessons, and anybody who dare criticize them gets labeled as a far-right extremist. I got banned from TikTok with 30,000 followers because I dared to criticize the Canadian government on immigration. They are going at our tongues. If you're not allowed to speak your mind, you are not a free agent anymore. You're not a free person. This needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. This is the total destruction of Canada. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member, donate, grab some gear, spread the good word. Canadian patriots need to stand up.